So hello, you all. My name is Julián Duque. I am the principal developer advocate at Heroku, and I will be the hands-on person today. This is going to be a live demo, no pre-recording, no like shenanigans. This is going to be real stuff. I'm going to be showing you the Heroku platform from the point of view of a developer, myself. So now let me go ahead and get comfortable and start. So today I'm going to be telling the story of a fictional company called Lumina Solar. Lumina Solar has been in the market for a while. They offer residential and commercial solar energy to house, where they have like a website where customers can either have access to a dashboard to see the energy production and consumption that they have, and also a e-commerce where they can like buy products to extend their systems. So how Lumina Solar built this solution on Heroku? We have a architectural diagram that I want to show you first before we jump into how things work. So Lumina Solar have two different stages to work with their application. They have a staging where their developers are testing new features, and they have productions where all their systems are running. Each of these environments are separated within two applications. One application is the API, is connected to all of the backend services that Lumina Solar has, and connected to a database, which is also running on Heroku using PostgreSQL. This is one of our managed data services. And the UI built with modern web technologies, it is running as a separate application. So you can have like a multi-tier architecture running on Heroku. The production API is running on an isolated resources and network that we have called private space. Private space, it is just like an isolated network, dedicated resources for your applications. And the other services are running on the common runtime, which is the multi-tenant platform of Heroku, where you are sharing resources with other neighbors. I'm going to be showing you from the start how a developer of Lumina Solar can develop or can deploy one version of this application on the Heroku platform. And everything starts from the source code. So Heroku, as Adam mentioned, you have an idea, you build that idea, you have the code, then we take care of the rest. We take your code, we build it, and we host it on our platform. So we have our application on GitHub. This is as I mentioned, a modern web application built with React, Node.js, like open source technologies, and we are going to deploy this to Heroku from scratch. Now here we are on the Heroku dashboard, specifically on the team that belongs to Lumina Incorporated, and we are going to deploy the application for the first time. So we are going to deploy the UI to the common runtime. To start, we need to create a new application, and I'm going to be showing you first the experience that a user can have using just the Heroku dashboard, the web experience, but we also offer an experience that is more down to earth for developers using the Heroku CLI. So you either can have like CLI dashboard, and we are also working on Visual Studio add-on and some other like things to improve the developer experience. So let's start from this new application. Let's call Lumina Tech Field, Day, of course. I am selecting it to be deployed on the common runtime. I can select common runtime can be deployed either to two different regions, one in the United States and the other in Europe. Private spaces, and I will show you that later, have access to 10 regions where you can deploy your applications globally. So let me create this application. This is just the container where I am going to run the app. And it is offering me the options of, okay, you can deploy using Git push from the CLI. You can connect to your GitHub organization, or you can connect to a container registry if you have like already Docker images that you want to deploy to your app. But let's start directly from the source code. So I will connect to my GitHub org. Let me select the Heroku examples where my Lumina Solar UI application exists. Let me search for the repository that I want to deploy, the UI demo. Now I am connected to my GitHub org, and then it's giving me some options to improve my deployment. Maybe I want to have automatic deployments after my developers just push a new version to a branch, and automatically that will be deployed the application. Or maybe I want to have like more control to it by using a CI/CD pipeline. In this case, I'm going to just do like a basic deployment, and we can go to pipelines later. I select the branch that I want to deploy, which is the main branch. Click on deploy branch, and that's it. Right now, Heroku is fetching that source code from GitHub. It is detecting that my application was built using Node.js and the different versions of the runtime that I specify. It's building up that application, creating a container image that it will make available for our customers to access to this URL. Initially, it's going to give me an Heroku app URL, which is like a domain that we offer to our customers for for like basic applications. We support SSL on these Heroku app domains that we offer, but you can also customize and give your own SSL certificates. You can give your own domain to your application, and I can show you later our automatic certification management that we did for our Lumina Solar demo. Now our build succeed. The application is ready. It is giving me an URL. And once it's released, I can go ahead, click on view, and hopefully the live demo works and I'm getting the interface deployed. So this is the experience from the developer getting the source code live to Heroku. Now, how can we start adding services to this application we created? So let's go back to our dashboard. Let's go to resources. This is our recently deployed app. Let me refresh so I can show you the Dynos. So now the basic unit of Heroku application, it's called the Dyno. The Dyno is a concept we created back like maybe more than 12 years ago. It is the computational unit where your applications are going to run. Here we have a basic Dyno. The basic Dyno has like a specific CPU and memory unit assigned to this Dyno, but you can also scale from the same dashboard. And we support the two different scaling options. You can scale vertically or you can scale horizontally. So let me now scale to a professional Dyno because this is going to be production ready. And now I will select the different compute Dyno that I will like for my application. For common runtime, I can select either like a shared compute with the standard Dynos or performant Dynos, which are going to be just a dedicated virtual machine for my application. And we recently launched the large Dyno sizes that can have like more RAM and CPU compute for your apps. So I'm not going to be super demanding for this app. I'm going to deploy to Performance M, which has 2.5 gigabytes of RAM, perfect for a Java application, for example, and scale my app. Just by clicking confirm, now I am running on that compute. This is going to move the application and restart in place, and now I scale my app. If I want to run on multiple Dynos, let's see if I want to scale Node horizontally or vertically. I always get those confused. Yes, I can add more Dynos to my application. So extend the multiple nodes where my application are going to be deployed. And Heroku is going to take care of the load balancing capabilities, the routing that is going to be behind. You don't need to worry about that. You don't need to create an API gateway or enterprise load balancer for this. We just slide and scale our application. Now it is running on 4 Dynos or 32 units of compute, which is a measurement that we have. But what if this application, let's say Lumina is going to have a promotion on Black Friday, which is coming in a couple of weeks. And of course, normally we have like hundreds of customers going to our app, but on Black Friday we can get millions. And there is always this issue with the scalability. We don't want to have somebody here sitting down, moving the slider. We want to enable auto-scaling as well. So let's do that. I'm going to enable auto-scaling for my application. And now it is giving me a range of the minimum and maximum number of dynos that I'm going to have available for my application and the desired response time that I'm going to offer to my customers before getting into auto-scaling. So it recommends, like, if the P95 percentile for my response time is higher than 1,000 millisecond or 1 second, it's going to trigger that auto scaling. But it's recommended to go less, so I'm going to go to 500. I want to have more control, maybe scale between 1 and 4. And please notify me if you are auto scaling, because I want to have also control about what's going on. Click on confirm, and now this application is going to scale automatically depending on the traffic that it's getting. So since we are using metrics to make sure we are doing the auto scaling, we also offer a dashboard for metrics for your applications. So let me go to the metrics panel here. Let me move the resolution. Let me refresh so I have like better resolution. Perfect. So the performance dynos can have like metrics for the past 2 hours. And here we are going to see different events that happen with our applications, like deploys, restarts. So you are seeing here a bunch of different deploys because I scale my application and I move my application into different dynos. But if there is like an incident or we have a restart due to an error of our application, we are going to get those events here as well. It's showing me the memory usage for my app. So in case we have like a memory leak or we are consuming more memory that we have allocated, it's going to notify me about that. The response time, which is the metric we are using for scalability, the throughput, dyno load for CPU, and for certain specific languages, we can also augment the metrics with our language runtime metrics. This is a Node.js application, so I can enable the enhanced language metrics. I will start collecting metrics for Node.js. So this will take care into account the event loop usage, the event loop idle, some metrics that are very valuable for Node.js developers, but we also support metrics for Java and Go applications. I can enable alerts for my app. This is without using a third-party add-on like Pingdom, for example. I'm using like the native option, but we can also extend the observability and the notifications using third-party add-ons. I'm going to show you that in a moment. But let me configure the alerts, and I need to be mindful not to move this too much so this doesn't crash. Okay, I can monitor response time and failed request. So since we are monitoring the 5 change here, we are monitoring the 500 millisecond response time for auto scaling. I want to get notifications, so please send me emails. I can add the emails of the different people that will receive this notification. And let's say I'm going to be sending myself a notification. I'm not going to like do the confirmation step, but this is a way I can enable that notification for different people on my team so they can get notified when you have problems with your application, if you have failed requests, or the response time is going higher than what you are expecting. And since normally development teams have more than 1 people doing stuff, we also have support for like a more granular access to our application. We can manage access to both the enterprise team. In this case, Lumina Inc. has a set of multiple admins or collaborators that can access my app. But let's say I want to add Chris as one collaborator, so I will enter his email here and give him deploy access. And now Chris can go to his Heroku dashboard, take access, get access to the application, deploy new versions. Awesome. Please fix the bug that I'm going to be introducing in a moment. Okay, this is the basic experience of deploying an application to Heroku, but let's go to those managed data services that I was mentioning, specifically the data services that we also support. So how can we add a PostgreSQL database to my Heroku application? We have access to these add-ons that comes from a add-ons marketplace that we call Elements. There we have both the Heroku managed services and third-party managed services as well. So let's search for PostgreSQL. We can see that there are like other providers that also have like Postgres as a service, but I want to use the Heroku version. And then I will select the different plan that I want for my app. Since I don't know too much about the plans, it's just giving me basic information, I can go directly to the Elements Marketplace and get more information about the different features. For example, what is the premium PostgreSQL offering? So it's giving me information about the memory that this database has, if it supports forks or backups, if it has a specific row limit or the connection pool limit. And I think this is the best database that I can provide for my application. It supports backups, it supports rollbacks. So let's just select the premium offering, premium 0, submit the order form, and that's it. Now I am provisioning the database within my application, and it's going to enable a database URL environment variable. So from my app code, I can directly connect to that database. This will, yes.
I've been wondering, and the curiosity is mounting about tools for cost management and forecasting, because a lot of this automated stuff or the cost analysis that you're doing there, I see all the numbers and I'm thinking to myself, maybe the person making these decisions is not really knowing what they're doing.
Exactly.
So are there automations for that, or like how are you helping to maintain any kind of cost requirement, especially as you move into production and potentially scale?
I'm not 100% sure if we have automations for that, Chris. If you have like insights about the
could be plugins, it could be integrations or partnerships even. It doesn't have to be in the Heroku platforms. Just
yeah. So there are some alerts you can set up for managing costs, but one of the things about Heroku is all the costs are pretty much upfront. So all the different dyno types have fixed costs per hour. Autoscaling is one of the few things where you're not explicitly opting into the increased cost, but one of our fundamental tenets is customers opt into spending more money. We don't surprise them with bills. And so autoscaling, you noticed Julian was setting that up. He had a max on there. So he has a known cap on what he can spend with the autoscale that he's configured. So that is one of the fundamental tenets of our product and design phase. We absolutely want to do more on this. Cost management tools are something that we're investing in next year a little bit more heavily. In fact, redoing some of our billing system to be more flexible has been one of the major programs we've been working on behind the scenes this year. So we have elasticity for enterprise customers who normally pay up front on a contract is something that's just about to launch. So we're doing a lot of modernization and enhancements in this area. My initial response is, you know exactly what your bill is going to be up front when you scale to a dyno, when we tell you what it's going to cost per month. Those Postgres plans have a monthly price tag attached to them that's clear and upfront, and there isn't extra dimensions of billing. You know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And you can set some price alerts when you're hitting specific volumes of email. But I think you're going to ask me about more advanced tools. Is it going to be a follow-up question?
Well, more of a statement. Thanks for that clarification. There's a business question here, right? Which is sometimes it's okay to go higher on cost. Sometimes you can't set a cap because you're making money with each dollar you're spending on this. And so that's where that kind of, I wouldn't want to call it automation, but scaling, because your app has, become Godhead somewhere and you're breaking it in hands and fists, you wouldn't want that cap anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
We do offer a view by the enterprise team here to get more information about the estimated cost of both the Dyno and the add-ons that you have for your application. So here can give you like a preview of pretty much how much in add-ons are you going to be spending per month and the Dyno units that you are using for the application that are running on your team. So this also gives you like a preview of how cost is going currently on your app.
I'd like to add on to guys a little bit is that one of the concern that I can see is that the person deploying is not paying the bills. That's just like any other hyperscaler that you're dealing with, is that the cost is still going to be a surprise to the person doing it. So the visibility, not only upfront when you're doing it, hey, I'm an engineer, great, that's my cost. I don't care, I'm not paying the bill, but can we get advanced, or is there ways that you could see advanced visibility and forecast month over month, or long term, or are there add-ons, potential stuff coming up?
Yeah, there are some third-party add-ons that do auto-scaling with more complex rule sets. And again, roadmap, one of the things we're doing, one of the reasons we're investing so much in our billing system and our billing backend and user management in more granular permissions is another roadmap item for the next year. So the intersection of those two is absolutely going to end up being something like a user and team quota system. It's an area that we definitely are investing in because we agree. We have predictable pricing, but being able to make sure predictable pricing fits within your budget is really the next step of growing that.
Let me add on to that. Are there APIs and stuff that I can pull the pricing into my own platform and do the predictability?
Yeah, and the dashboard Julian showed you shows based on current resource utilization, this is what your monthly bill is going to be. So your business team can look at that every Friday if they want to, and it's not 18 different dimensions. It's here's your dynos, here's your add-ons, this is what your price tag is going to be if nothing changes.
Where is this running? Is this on top of AWS? Is it on Salesforce?
It's on top of AWS services. Yeah, we're very closely partnered with AWS. We use a lot of their services under the hood. We obviously have our own layers of management on top of that, but yeah, it's in AWS's cloud is the
So you're abstracting lower level AWS services and making them easy for me to use as the customer.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the power of AWS. In fact, one of the things we're going to talk about in the next segment is some of the things that we're doing in terms of roadmap with our database products and capitalizing on some new AWS features there. So the close partnership, in fact, it's available to buy Heroku on AWS private offer or direct. As part of that partnership, AWS likes selling Heroku because it sells AWS by proxy. We work well together.
So yeah, to answer your question, we have a platform API that you can have access to it, and it has like the daily and monthly usage endpoints to get more like information from your enterprise account. So yeah, there is a way to build like a more granular dashboard to get that information. So we were at the Elements Marketplace talking about our managed data service, which is Heroku Postgres, but we are also have access to other third parties that also like create add-ons that integrate with Heroku, and they can also benefit by selling those services through Heroku. The provision is similar. Let's say if we want to provision login for my application, have like different login providers. Let's say I want to add paper trail support. I can do it directly from the Elements dashboard. Let's say I want to install paper trail on my application. Let's click on that, select the application I want to install paper trail, which was the Lumina Tech Field Day. Submission and order form. And now I have access to Paper Trail. I just click on the Paper Trail dashboard from my Heroku application. It will perform all the authentication for me. And now I have access to my logs from this other service. So I can create also alerts and filters here, which are like the different features that Papertrail offers. And I can have access to other different add-ons as well. Okay, so now let's move to the pipelines. So go back to our Lumina Inc. Enterprise team. I already had set up the two pipelines that I showed you before, the pipeline for the UI and the pipeline for the API. So the pipeline for the UI consists of two applications. One is for the staging environment and the other one is for production. Let me go ahead and open that pipeline to have more visibility about it. And here we can see that, sure, I have the staging application that I can just go ahead, open, and take a look how this application is different than the one that we have on production. And it's giving me a different deploy version than the one that I have on production. So this is why I have a button to promote. So if I want to have this version that is on staging now released on production, I just click promote to production and it will be just released immediately. So now I have this version that I had on staging now available directly on production.
With the promotion to production, do you support canarying or blue-green deployments or some other more sophisticated mechanisms?
So we do have something called release phase that lets you run arbitrary actions. And you could do some canary checks in those right now, but it's frankly a little bit of a hack. So yes, with an asterisk that it's not the curated experience that we'd like it to be. I hate to be, well, I'm in product, so I guess I should stand up here and say roadmap a lot. That is kind of my job.
Short answer, yes with an if, long answer, no with a but.
Yeah, in fact, one of the things that we built internally to meet some of Salesforce's security and compliance standards and rollouts that require canaries, and we've built those internally. We are dog fooding them, or drinking our own champagne, I should say, and are actively working on bringing those into the product to do real canary deploys. Blue-green is going to be a little bit more challenging, probably towards the end of next year is my guess right now. But canaries are absolutely something we're actively working on right now. So you can do it today. It's just not the curated experience we'd like. Making it so that you see in the dashboard your error rate in real time with a rollback button is the kind of thing that we'd like to do to really curate the experience, make it simple and fit the whole Heroku vibe. And that is actively being developed.
But you're free to design your own. Anyway, essentially.
Absolutely. And Julián was showing you can view the staging app, you can go interact with it, you can do your own canaries and staging as much as you want. In fact, that's why that's a manual step here to promote to production. This pipeline is because you want to have a human look at it and verify it and sanity check it. You want to run your monitoring suite against it before you go and click that button. So it's not as tightly integrated and as curated an experience as we'd like today, which is the roadmap item. But yes, absolutely, you can do it. You could do it on platform with release phase if you really wanted to. You could do it using existing tools that you know and love if you would like. And yeah, again, there's an app fully ready to go with its own Postgres database that's generated by the pipeline that's entirely independent from production so that you can do that testing and make sure that everything works the way you want it to.
So just a quick question on that. Is there an easy way to demote back or flip-flop back between the two if you find an issue after the fact?
Yes, we actually store your past releases, and there is rollback both via the dashboard, via the CLI, and via the platform API. So if you need to roll back, it's not, you don't even have to go and do an empty commit or like a rollback in Git. You can actually roll back to the pre-built binary version that previously existed. I don't know if you're ready if you have that handy, but if you do.
I don't have that handy, but
that's fair. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but yeah, you can, I think it's 90 days worth of releases, if I'm remembering right. I'd have to double check the docs, but yeah, we store your past releases and let you roll back via whichever tool you prefer.
At the risk of derailing this conversation entirely, which is a risk I like to take sometimes.
That's what I'm here for.
Do you have something along the lines of a partnership ecosystem or something similar to that? Because I feel like a lot of the secondary questions we're asking are, You integrate with someone. Is there a partner who can do this? That sort of thing. I don't mean your tech partners that you founded on like AWS or Terraform or whoever, sorry. I mean, to extend, northwards the capabilities of the platform.
Absolutely. So the Elements Marketplace, Julian showed you provisioning Heroku Postgres, our first-party Postgres offering that we manage ourselves from that. But there are multiple Postgres providers that are not Heroku.
That's what I was wondering.
There are MySQL providers. There are Microsoft SQL providers. If you want the premium Redis add-ons that are commercial only, provision your key value storage from Redis Labs via partner ecosystem instead of using our managed key value store. So absolutely, the Elements Marketplace is our answer to this. Got a whole bunch of them. There's monitoring, there's auto-scaling. If you don't like our auto-scaling, that's great. Judo-scale is one that off the top of my head, I know is fairly popular. So yes, absolutely. In addition to our platform API for you to use as a customer, we have a partner API that lets all of these partners integrate tightly.
Yep.
And of course, there are integration partners as well. So we have our technology partners, we have our Elements partners, we have our SI partners. Partner ecosystem is a huge part of what we are.
Also, agency partners like that build solutions on top of Heroku for other customers as well.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Any other question?
Yeah, kind of a follow-up question to you mentioned before that if I have things that I already know and like, I can sort of plug them into the platform and have them work with it. And I'm trying to phrase this in a nice way, unlike me.
All right, I'll get ready.
If I already have stuff that I know and like, why am I moving to Heroku? Because you said at the beginning that you have a historical perception of what the platform is good at, and I've experienced this myself. It's great, and then you start hitting the edges of it. And what I'm hearing from you is that those edges have actually moved further out than they were before.
If you find an edge or two where you don't like our opinions, it's probably still a pretty good platform for you. If you start to find that you disagree with the majority of our opinions, then the value is going to start decreasing more and more. So if you don't like our auto-scaling solution, that's great. There's an API, there's an add-ons partnership. If that's the thing you don't like, awesome. We can substitute that, and there's plenty of solutions in that space. If you don't like how we auto-scale, if you don't like Dynos, if you don't like managed Postgres, if you don't like how we bill, then it doesn't really make sense at that point. So it's an element of we provide a lot of opinions, and we expect that there will be various compliance or corporate politics or technical or whatever have you reasons that at least some of them might not apply universally. And we don't want one of our opinions to be a deal breaker. And so we try and have some escape hatches and pressure release valves and things like that for where we know we have a lot of opinions. The 12-factor manifesto that I'll talk about in a little bit was kind of spicy when it came out, much less so these days. But yeah, if you disagree with us on a few things, probably not a deal breaker. If you disagree with us wholeheartedly, then we're probably the wrong platform.
Yeah, where I'm struggling a bit is in the demo of what you're showing is the audience for this people who don't know Heroku, who are coming to it fresh, or like I have a new application, I want to just deploy that and I'm going to do it fresh? Or is it people who've already got experience with other things who know how to do this, for example, deployment things and blue-greens and canaries? I know what that is somewhere else. What does it look like over here in Heroku? Because maybe I can change my mind on 2 or 3 things that, you know what, it's not that important, and I get all of these savings. Who are you talking to?
So I'll say it's a little bit of both because, you could be, maybe it's a team that's going to get an app deployed for the first time and they're looking for where they're going to run it. Well, how are they going to deal with that? And so this is a great solution if they haven't built a bunch of things or if they don't have a pre-existing platform. I've also seen, and I've known many of you for a while, been in kind of like dev tools, containers, Kubernetes, platform space for a long time. I've seen an interesting shift in the last few years. And this is one of the reasons why I'm back. I've joined Heroku is that, I saw there was a comment, one of the comments in the feed about like innovating for innovators' sake. When we saw containers happen, we saw Kubernetes happen, we had to kind of disrupt the entire ecosystem because we created this new level of abstraction. And then we have this huge ecosystem now of like hundreds of components, and everybody really started to geek out on them. And we had to innovate on those. What I have seen just from the last couple of years is that there's kind of this, everybody's trying to build a platform internally to various degrees of success. Those who, did kind of distributed, let the teams decide for themselves, now then find themselves with like, oh, wow, I now have 100 little micro platforms throughout my company. Now, how do I standardize, secure, do some of these other things so that I get some economies of scale? Or I've started to build my XPaaS internally, and it's actually the team who built it left. It works great, but we have not updated anything in 3 or 4 years because we're afraid. So I think with this, there's kind of this return to like, what are all the things that we should be building ourselves and maintaining? That's become a really big question that I've seen come up from customers of all sizes. Where does my team provide unique technical value? And should I spend the time building my apps? Should I spend the time building my infrastructure, building the tooling integrations and that? And depending on the team, depending on what products they're delivering to their customers, they could be anywhere along that spectrum. So when I see what we do here, it could be for someone who's had some of their own platform for all, but it's now like maybe spending all that time at the platform level is not sustainable. Or it could be for someone new. So it runs the gamut, I'll say. And you know what? There, like the discussion earlier on, like the opinions, there will be folks that start here and maybe they say their opinions change on what they would want out of a platform, then they may leave. And then their opinions may change again. It really kind of depends on size and scale and what they're looking to accomplish with the resources they have from people time at that point in time.
Continuing with pipelines, there is another feature that I have not mentioned, which is review apps. So what are review apps? During the development process, I make changes and I want to make sure those changes are good while they are still on the pull request before I merge the pull request. So we can enable review apps to create an ephemeral application that could live for a couple of days on the platform for developers review if that pull request is what they want before merging into the branch where the staging or production is happening. So for our UI application, we have a couple of pull requests. We updated a file, and now we are waiting for our developers to review this specific change. And automatically, it created an ephemeral application that I can go ahead, open, review this change, make sure this is what I wanted. Here, somebody changed the title of the company for high, which is not what I wanted. So I will reject that pull request. But if it is what I want, I just go ahead and merge these. And since the pipeline has automatic deploys for staging, it will take that change and automatically deploy. This is also attached to the CI component that we also offer. So if your application have tests and you want to run those tests before creating the review app or before deploying, just do that when the test pass. You can connect to the Heroku CI and connect to your own unit and integration tests that it's going to just show the information that this passed and let you perform the deployment. Or if for some reason that patch or that pull request fail, is going to let you know, and this is not going to let that application be deployed if you are setting that pipeline to do so. And you can also manage access by pipeline and by application and by team, because usually there are like multiple people working on those apps. So that's pipelines. Now let's go and talk about an enterprise feature, which is private spaces and Shield. So now let's go to the Spaces tab, and here we have two different environments or two different regions where I can also deploy applications. We have Lumina West, which is our private runtime that is deployed to the Oregon or West region. And we created also the Shield version of that on the Virginia region as well, different data centers. So let's go open Lumina West. This is our private space. We only have one application running here. This is the production API that we have for our application. And on a private space, we can have like two different types of applications. One application that it is in the private space, but available to the public, or we can create an application within the private space that it is only available to other applications within the same space. So I can have like internal routing. Let's say we have a microservice that we don't want to expose to the public, but have access internally within my network, or just an API that is available to the public. The private space, as I mentioned before, it has its own isolated network with more control. I can set up if I can give access to different range of trusted IPs. I have also information about the different outbound IPs where my traffic from my application are going on in case I am connecting to different services and I need to specify some firewall rules. If I have other services running on AWS and I want to establish like a secure and trusted connection between my private space and those services, I can also do VPC peering. So I have my own VPC within AWS with all this information, and I can create my specific peerings with the other services that I have on my AWS. Or if I have services running on premises or on other clouds, I can also establish a private VPN connection in case I just want to establish access to those within my private space. And this is not only app level. So now on a private space, we have different Dynos. So now these Dynos are optimized for running on the private space, have the different sizes that we also offer on common runtime, but these are totally isolated. And the same happened with the managed data services. Now this database that we have here, this Heroku Postgres database, it's only available within the private space. So this is not available publicly. I cannot connect a public client to this database. I can only connect to this database from the application that is running on the same network. So I have more control about the access of my resources here. And what about Shield? So Shield is our compliant runtime, and this is going to be for applications that are HIPAA or PCI compliant. I don't have any application running here, but it is going to be the same process to deploy an app. I just create a new app and deploy either from the CLI or from GitHub. And the main difference here is now these applications or these Shield Dynos are PCI or HIPAA compliant. The file system is going to be ephemeral and encrypted, and it's going to have like different features, so I can have like P2 sensitive applications or health applications running within the same compliant environment. Let me show you the experience of running a...
So just on that,
Sure.
Is it similar to a Nitro enclave or in that kind of security sense or
Similar to...
the AWS Nitro enclave? So where you can
Similar to...
run secure code and is it
not quite that extreme.
Okay.
So there's a number of differences. There's actually some features that are turned off. There's keystroke logging for any interactive terminals or manually run commands. The file system is encrypted at rest, even the ephemeral parts of it. The Postgres connections require mutual TLS. So it's all the elevated security requirements and compliance checkboxes for HIPAA and PCI compliant. It doesn't go to the absolute extreme end of like the most paranoid potential computing secure enclaves, but we are always looking at adding new compliance features to Shield. The customer I just talked about, Health Sherpa, uses Shield obviously for their open enrollment in healthcare enrollment. There's a number of financial services customers So it's effectively Heroku. The features that you lose are generally not things that are a huge deal breaker for people. So it's making it easy and approachable to get HIPAA and PCI compliance is for regulated industries is really the underpinning goal. We could go more paranoid on the security enclave side of things. I think it's an interesting area for us to explore, but frankly, the market was more interested in the compliance checkboxes so far in our perception than they are on the interesting research tech. Always going to keep an eye on that and adjust accordingly, though.
Thank you.
So let's, now that we don't have any application here in Shield, let's give it a try to our CLI experience. How can we create an application from the CLI and deploy from the CLI? This is now for like us developers that live more time on a terminal. So I created this space, which is the Lumina East Shield, and I'm going to create a new application on that space, and I'm going to do a deployment from the CLI. So first, I'm going to be using the Heroku CLI. It's a tool that we provide to developers so they can like manage application, they can do scaling from there, they can manage the pipeline, they can check logs, they can deploy. It's all like a fully featured tool. So you can manage Heroku both from the dashboard or from the CLI. And also in cases where you are going to create those specific automations from external services, let's say GitHub Actions, you can also use the CLI for those purposes. So let's go and create an application. This is the same Lumina UI, but on Shield. And I'm going to deploy, to create that application on the space. That is the Lumina East Shield space. Now I created the app container. It is giving me an URL, but I don't have anything there right now. So our deployment experience is using Git. So first I'm going to be checking that I have the remote created. So automatically it created a remote called Heroku that goes directly to the Git server hosted on our Heroku platform for that Lumina UI Shield application that I just created. So to deploy, I will do a git push Heroku main, and it will follow the same process. It's taking the source code that it's on the Git repository, it's sending that code to our Git server. The Git server is kicking off the build process, and using our build packs, it detects that we are using Node.js. It's going to go through the whole building process, and it's the same experience that I showed you previously while going on the dashboard. So when it is deployed and when it is ready, it is giving me an URL, and I can have access to that URL as well. And directly from the CLI, I can also manage the scalability of my application. So let's wait until it builds the app and releases. So you see for an application like this one, depending on the complexity, it takes less than a minute to build and deploy, or if you have a lot of assets that needs to build, it will take a little bit more time. But for a simple UI like this one, it takes less than a minute. Since now we are on this isolated runtime, which is Shield, it is telling me that the application is not going to be available yet because it is doing all the DNS setup. But we can go ahead and show the scalability options from the CLI.
And of course, that DNS setup is only for the first time you deploy a net new app on a private space. That's not an every time thing.
Yeah. So now with the same Heroku application, I can go ahead and run Heroku PS or processes. It's going to tell me the different processes my application is running on. It's telling me that it's going to run on a Shield M Dyno. It only has one process that it's provisioning, so we are waiting until the whole provisioning aspect finalizes. But let's go and run the same command to an application that we already deployed previously, let's say the API and staging. So now we see that the API and staging that it's already up and provisioned is running on one Dyno, one standard 1x Dyno. And if I want to scale, I just say, okay, let's take this application. scale it, and I want to increase the number of web processes to 4. And when I run the PS command again, now it will tell me, sure, now you have 4 Dynos running on your application, and they are immediately running because we have access to those resources, and the build image is going to be the same for all of those. And there are like other different services that you can manage from the CLI. The CLI is pretty complete, and it's also extensible. Add-on providers can also create their own plugins for the CLI. This is using an open source framework that we also created at Heroku called Oakleaf, that it's being managed by Salesforce. It's the same framework that Salesforce uses for the CLI. Adobe, Twilio, other companies uses the same open source framework for this application. And from here, you can, as I mentioned, manage your whole app as well. Let's go back to the dashboard and just give you a glimpse of that app. Let me refresh. We can confirm that, yes, our application is here now. It will take time to provision, but we can go and see other features, which is, as you saw from the name, we are part of Salesforce, and we also have like a good integration with Salesforce at the data level. So I'm going to be adding that Salesforce integration support to my application. Let me go back to the app. We have Lumina Solar. If I go to the products page, these 4 products lives on my Heroku Postgres application. But what if I already want to integrate with the e-commerce option that Salesforce has? Salesforce has a great way to manage products, and I already have a product catalog with pricing and everything on Salesforce, and I want to bring those products to my application. So for that, I will use Heroku Connect, which is our product to bidirectionally integrate Heroku data with Heroku Postgres. So since this is production, so let me go to production, the production API, and let's provision Heroku Connect. Let me search Heroku Connect. I'm going to provision this demo version for Heroku Connect. Now what I need to do is connect my Heroku application to a Salesforce org that has the data. So let's go to the Heroku Connect dashboard. First, we need to establish the Salesforce connection. So let me set up that connection. I am going to be using this PostgreSQL database. I'm going to be using the Salesforce schema. Perfect. Let's go to the next step. It says that I already had this previously set up. So let me go to one that I already did. Of course, I can prepare. Let me go to the staging one. And I have Heroku Connect here. That is already connected to a Salesforce org. Beautiful. So this is already connected to a Salesforce org. And how can we bring Salesforce data into our application? We do that through mappings. So this is creating a schema within my PostgreSQL database. This schema is by default called Salesforce. And I'm going to be creating mappings. Right now I have a mapping called product 2, which is the one that we want to create. Let me delete this so we start from scratch the mapping process. I'm going to be creating a mapping. This is going to fetch the list of supported Salesforce objects that I can map into my Heroku application. It supports both standard objects and custom objects. So if you are building your own Salesforce application with your own custom objects, you will be able to bring those also into a Heroku Postgres. So let's take a look for product 2. Let's start mapping this object. As I mentioned, this is bidirectional. You can have like just read-only data into your app. You can enable write capabilities as well. In case if you update data using PostgreSQL queries, it will synchronize those changes upstream to Salesforce. I don't need write permissions, just read permissions. And here, you don't need to bring the whole object information, maybe just certain fields that you're going to use for your app. For my product list, I want to bring the image URL. I need a description. I need a family. Why? Because I know which ones I need. I need a product code. And if I am not wrong, those are the fields that I need. Let me save.
And while you're setting that up, for something like product, you probably look at your Salesforce org as authoritative and pull that into Heroku Postgres. If you're taking orders on Heroku, pushing those back into Salesforce, they show up in your full CRM view of your customer. You can see their order history alongside their cases and things like that if you're using Service Cloud. These are the type of use cases for that type of bidirectional synchronization.
I actually have some experience with synchronization into Salesforce and third-party apps connecting to Salesforce. And it is always a huge hassle to look up the unique IDs and all that kind of stuff. I assume that you guys are hiding all that and smoothing it all over and making it very easy.
Absolutely. The goal of this product is that Heroku developers don't have to know Salesforce unless they care to.
Okay.
That's one of the founding principles of our Salesforce integrations at Heroku is your average node developer generally isn't that interested in learning the nuances of Salesforce's API. Now, there's plenty who do, but there's plenty who don't. And making it easy and setting the boundary between those two in the right place where Salesforce understands what's happening and Heroku understands what's happening, but neither needs to get too in the weeds on each other's side of the fence, is very much a design goal.
Yeah, I kind of assumed that you guys had tackled that because it just seems like if you're going to integrate with Salesforce, like step one is build your own lookup and mapping engine. Step two is build the thing you actually wanted to build. And with this, you got that covered.
And there's a ton of optimizations under the hood. It uses the bulk API if it's pulling larger volumes of data. It uses the streaming API for rapid updates on smaller volumes of data. It makes a ton of decisions about what Salesforce APIs to use and how for you so that you don't have to think about it.
Yep. Thank you. So here I synchronize those products. It's telling me the number of registries that it brought, like 123 products. I can just verify from here that definitely this is what I wanted. So I have like the product information here with what I fetch. Exactly, this is what I want. Now let's go to our application, not to the API, but to the staging UI, which is the one that it's using that API. Let's go and open this application. And hopefully, if everything works, I will have more than 4 products here. Yes, I have more than 4 products. The first 4 comes from my PostgreSQL database directly. The rest of the products are coming from Salesforce into that new schema that we created for our app, and we integrated using Heroku Connect. That was going to be the last thing that I wanted to show in my demo. There are like a couple other things that Heroku does. One is that configuration management. I mentioned previously that these are like 2 different applications, one API and one UI. How are we connecting those two? Through configuration variables. So here I am specifying to my application through an environment variable to fetch the data from this specific API. And it also going to manage database information. Other third-party add-ons also managed through environment variables. This is part of the original 12-factor applications, which is manage those configuration aspects within the environment.